So the Generosity Flywheel is something that came out of the building of the Plus One Collective. So let me start with that. The Plus One Collective is our group of purpose-driven consultants that span across every industry, every function, every level. You can be in the Plus One Collective no matter what, any industry and anywhere you come from, as long as, and we are all connected by this through line, you do some sort of free pro bono volunteer work in your function and you give it away for free in a measurable way. And what we've decided is that like being consultants is really hard. No one wants to be alone. It's really difficult to stay in consulting. The first year of consulting, 91%, I believe was the stat I looked at, but I could be wrong in terms of now. 91% of consulting folks that are out there in the solopreneur world fail in their first year. And part of that reason is being alone, being by yourself, and not really knowing how to drive your business forward. So the Generosity Flywheel is all about the idea of using free work to drive your business. And not only that, thinking about it as a dual purpose model. So the Generosity Flywheel is all about doing good because it's good for the world and it creates a ripple effect out there, and doing good and giving things away for free because it's great for business. So two things can be true at once. Doing good and giving free work away creates a ripple effect. Doing good and giving away free work creates a business opportunity for you to drive your business forward. And bartering and trading with other consultants and utilizing their skill sets and the things that they're great at helps all solopreneurs continue to keep their business moving forward, going in the right direction, because most of us out there in the world in consulting know our function or a couple of functions. I'll give you an example. I'm an HR person and I traded services on my end for executive coaching and the work that I do with some finance people, because I am not a finance specialist. And when you go out on your own as a solopreneur or consultant, that generosity can keep you alive out there. That generosity of other people, the generosity of yours, can keep your business alive. It can also be a way for you to prove yourself in an industry or a function that you haven't worked in before, or prove yourself as a consultant before you land your first job. You can go get credibility, case studies, and help people at the same time by doing free work. And I think the challenge here is that most people think about free work as being taken advantage of, right? I'm not going to do free work. I'm worth money. I have to value myself. Fair enough. Being taken advantage of for work that you should be paid for, never advocating for that. I am advocating for the use of free work as a marketing tool, as a business development tool that you control for yourself, that you go choose to do free work so that you can show people that you're great at this work and land that business, or so that you could do it for someone else in the community that maybe was bartering with you for a different kind of service to grow your presence or your PR out there in the world. So I am all about that generosity flywheel, building momentum for you. Free work creates paid work, which creates the opportunity to do more free work and build that flywheel as you grow your organization, your business, and your ability to create impact in the world. So I always talk about free work being the entry point. It's not the whole package. It's a piece of the pie. It's not the whole pie, right? So when you offer somebody something for free, it needs to have a term, right? And I often talk about having an audit or having some sort of entry point that's a fixed number, not related to your rate, not related to what you're going to charge in the future. And sometimes that fixed rate is zero. And you come into an organization I'll just give you an example of how this works. So I will say to you, I'm going to give you an HR audit, right? And that audit is going to be for free. I'm going to come in for 2 hours, fixed timeline, right? I'm going to come in for 2 hours. I'm going to deliver you these 5 things. And then after that, it's up to you what you decide to do with this information. I'm going to hand it over to you. I would love it if I was the person that you chose to fulfill all of these things that you need to do. But if not, at least you have the information, and please share my information with other people so that I can, get some good PR, a good testimonial, a case study, so that I can continue to grow my business by doing this. So it's an effective method of growing your business, whether you land the job or not. Now, the opposite of that is, hey, I'm going to indefinitely do some free work and advisory services for you with no scope of work, and I'm going to come help you and we'll see how it goes. That's how you get taken advantage of. Instead of creating a fixed offering that is useful, helpful, and short term enough that it's not going to affect you in a negative way, and short term enough that it's going to be worth it for you to get that case study, to get that testimonial, and to get that work under your belt so that you can go create repeatable templates to do it in future. So, like, all free work isn't really free work. You're building something that you're going to use for your future consultancy. You're going to use the goodwill to get more PR. So you need to know what you're asking for in return as that barter. And you're going to feel good about it because you did something to help somebody, hopefully in a similar purpose-driven space. As I was saying it, I was thinking like the time bound is probably the most important part, because if you put fixed, making sure that is a fixed engagement, and you can charge a little bit for it too, or you can initially talk about this as a trade or barter system. Generosity doesn't have to be just you doing something. To me, the idea of generosity is a reciprocal reality. It's not something that is just you being taken advantage of. To me, that's no longer generosity, that's being taken advantage of, right? Generosity is doing something without necessarily expecting something in return, because the generosity in itself is already creating that return for you, right? So, I mean, I think if you think about it that way, yes, time bound, specific, and communicated effectively with the person. And then it's your work to lose at that point too. So that's where your skills have to come in to be able to turn this into the flywheel itself, which creates paid work. So it is your job to do a good enough job at that audit, to be competent enough and create an opportunity where you can sell yourself. And it's also a long-term growth strategy too, not just a short-term growth strategy. Yes, it helps you in the short term with those testimonials, that PR, the case studies, but it's also a long-term growth strategy, because that person might not be ready right now to pay for you. They might not be ready right now to do anything about that audit, but if they're going to, the first person they're coming back to is most likely going to be you. I think it's also really smart too for the Generosity Flywheel to have rate ranges. I think it's also really smart as part of the Generosity Flywheel to have rate ranges too, where you have flexibility within the opportunity to help somebody when they don't necessarily have your top rate. And like sort of boxing yourself into a rate where you can't be generous can be really detrimental to you when you're trying to grow your business at the early stages. And the program that we create at KJS is all about that. It's all about how do you package yourself? How do you get yourself up and running? And then how do you utilize generosity as a business strategy, as a marketing strategy, as a PR strategy to get you to that first paying client, to get you through that biz dev that feels hard, and at the same time do good. Like there's nothing wrong with that, right? You don't have a client, you're going to have to do salesy biz dev on the other side of things. So why not instead offer some free work to a nonprofit or somebody that you already know, and build your business from a place of good versus the place of desperation. I built this off of the idea of Tom's shoes, right? The buy one, give one. And that was how we originally started the Generosity Flywheel. It was a little bit more specific. It was called our give back model, which was for everything that we land, that we get paid for, we give something back, like a percentage back. And that was in free time or free work, or like something that would help in a volunteer type space in your function. So it actually came from a person, Rebecca Oppenheim is her name. And she had built a model on recruiting where for every job she landed, from a recruiting perspective, she went and donated her time at a domestic violence shelter for women and taught women there how to get jobs, right? So for every client she landed, she gave back a certain amount of free coaching as part of that. And I was like, that's the model. Because I came out of B Corps, fair trade, 1% for the planet, give back models, right? These are companies that have built into their work some sort of give back or a scale or rating for how they do this work, a certification, if you will, that held themselves to a higher standard from a business perspective. In the fair trade world, I worked for the Citizenry, where we gave, I think it was something like $40 million back into these indigenous communities of women across the globe who were making our artisan home goods. And we impacted entire communities this way. We gave back to Ukrainian women on one of our Black Friday, 1% Black Friday Day of Giving. And I'm probably totally butchering that. I can't remember what it's called exactly. But we would give back every Black Friday a percentage of our proceeds and a percentage back there. So I worked for these businesses and I was like, man, when you're out in the consulting world, there's no way to be recognized as a consultant like that. There's really no certifications for consultants out there, frankly, at all, unless you're working in a consulting company like a Deloitte or a large scale organization that has backing behind you. So you have to prove yourself as a consultant out there. And there's not a ton of ways to say, I do good. I am an excellent consultant that also does good for the world. So we wanted to have a community and a space where you could be recognized for that and work with other consultants that way. And so like ultimately that was where we were like sort of differing from these things was like the free work is something you can give back as a consultant. You can't always give money back. You can't always give, environmental, you can't always give trees back. And sustainability depending on what your business is, but you can always do the work that you are brilliant in for free to help somebody else out. You can always volunteer the thing that you are exceptional at for free. So to me, that's something that like you can be recognized for that you can also do if you're not making money yet, so that you can ultimately have something that differentiates you from another consultant because there's 7,000 consultants out there. How do you know which one is the one you want to work with? If we all have the same skill set, let's say we're talking CMOs, right? Chief marketing officers. Say there's 10 chief marketing officers out there that you could choose from in consulting. They all have very similar backgrounds. But this one, every time somebody gets hired by them, gives back, 10 hours of free work into the community, that your dollar is going further with that person than your dollar is going somewhere else. And the organizations that I worked for, B Corps, Fair Trade, 1% for the Planet type organizations, they want that. They recognize that. Those are the type of people they want to work with. So how do we identify that in the consulting group? We're building a certification for it. And that's going to be our +1 certification, that you are +1 certified in that space. And we are building something that will be measurable, let's say. It's going to have some sort of measurability similar to a B Corp. To be able to be identified as a business for good, maybe you haven't made it yet, right? Like maybe you haven't gotten to the level of success where it makes sense for you to do something like that. Maybe you're still working as a 1099, but you want to be identified as somebody who is giving back and doing give back work in this space, or be identified by those purpose-driven companies that are the ones that you want to attract for your business to hire you. And so to me, speaking about the Generosity Flywheel and this future certification and stamp that we will put on anyone who is considered a +1 collective member is going to be that future and eventual certification. But as of right now, the only thing that sort of exists in the Generosity Flywheel is a measurable give back that you can actually, prove that you have done in some sort of, I did 6 hours of this and here's the impact that I had. And for every hour I give 10 minutes back in free coaching. Or in my case, I do multiple different pieces of that, right? I give away free coaching every week to individuals, but we also pick a pro bono client at KJS every quarter that we work with that's a company. And actually, the company that I wound up working with this summer is called Stacked. It's a hot sauce company run by a 20-year-old disabled man who built an incredible company around his cerebral palsy and the fact that he can do anything. And we actually built a foundation for them called the Limitless Foundation. I'm a board member now. We built a whole thing. And this was our pro bono client. Like, this is somebody that we chose to work with because we believed in what they were doing, and we've built like an actual incredible relationship with them. We're working with them all the time now, and we actually built a foundation around it. So there is incredible ripple effect around doing this pro bono work when you measure it, when you show it, when you like show up for the people that really need it. And I think that's what this is all about, right? It's probably in future going to turn into a great business opportunity, but we chose to do it because there's two hands here, right? There's the because it's good and the right thing to do, and there's the because it's good and it's good for business. The other thing that people are always like, well, don't you feel like you're too neat? Like, don't you feel like you're too niche, only going after the nonprofit B Corp kind of purpose-driven companies. And my answer would be that, any company can be a purpose-driven company. It doesn't necessarily have to have a designation or those type of things. But also our people can go work in companies where they can make that impact and convince people to move in that direction too. Like it's not necessarily the companies that are already in the B Corp generosity flywheel space that necessarily need our impact. Sometimes it's the companies that aren't doing that already that we can build that impact and show those ways of working to folks as well. Realistically, there's a lot of people in the consulting world or side hustle world that are looking to, find their way into running their own business, that are looking for flexibility. They're parents, they're caregivers, they're people that just can't do the grind anymore. Right now I'm working pretty deeply with the disabled community. They can't get into an office and they have a lot to offer, but they can't work in a traditional office. And those folks need help, right? Like they need help to stay in that space sometimes. And, if you don't know how to market your business and you don't know how to do the financial components of your own business, but you're really great at making baskets, right? Like, you're really great at this artistic skill. Well, if you were to work in a traditional consulting environment where you just go out on your own and have to figure this out on your own, yes, you've got AI, you've got Google and resources at your disposal, but instead, we function almost as a company behind you. Now you've got a marketing consultant that is also in the Plus One Collective. You've got a ex CFO that's in the Plus One Collective, and you could be like, "Hey, let me help provide you with some gifts for your clients for Christmas this year. In exchange, can you help me with my taxes? And can you help me figure out how to do better biz dev with my email marketing?" Why did we get away from that in the first place, right? It's a really human way of interacting with each other and helping with the thing that we have to give, right? And it isn't always a zero-sum game. You benefit by helping them. They know more about your work and can promote you. You help them with something that they needed. I mean, it's just a wonderful way of working. And I think we've gotten away from that in this very individualistic society. And I don't want to sound like I'm like, let's create a commune, but like, let's think about this as a business exercise. When you have marketing, CFOs, you have CEOs and operators working with you in a way, even if they're not in your own individual business, you've created essentially a company around you that can support you. So we're building right now it's the honor system, which, everyone who comes into the Plus One Collective signs off on their membership form saying, here's what my give back is and here's what I do. But what we're building is in terms of our certification is a way for them to measure that. And yeah, we're going to build like that thermometer kind of look thing for our page where we can actually measure like the actual like free work and how many hours, how much impact we've made. We're working through that right now because some people it's hours, some people it's things, right? Some people, it's like everyone has their own thing to give back. So we're trying to figure out exactly what the measurement for impact is, but it's right now, it's just how many people we have doing work outside of their, paid work to create this ripple effect right now. So right now we're more about how many people can we get into the Plus One Collective and get into this model so that we know that every single one of those people is impacting more than just the work that they're doing for paid. I think right now, the way that the world is working, it feels very self-focused. It feels very protective, nervous. The job market is tight. It's a very when you think about going through the job process and getting hired for your first or for whatever the next job you're doing is, and when you look at that, it's a zero-sum game. Only one person wins. It's a Hunger Games style, and everybody else loses. And I think when we think about the trade and barter system, when we think about doing freer trade work, when we think about what we can bring to the table in a short-term engagement or a micro engagement or a consulting engagement, it's not a zero-sum game, right? It's not just one winner. There's multiple winners. Both sides benefit from support. And it's just like a really great place to play for those people that want that kind of community and want that kind of support for themselves outside of just what they do. And I think the job market has created this very me only experience that feels so gross and yucky that if we can create the counterbalance to that for folks that haven't been able to find a job yet or don't want to find another job yet, I would love to create a movement in that direction where we all feel like we can benefit from either getting the help we need to get into an in-house role or get the help we need surrounding us to stay in our own business, either in the meantime or for good.